I was riding alone through the high desert when I saw her standing beside the road, wrapped in a dark shawl that fluttered like a torn flag against the wind.
The land was empty for miles, and anyone who knew these trails understood that a lone figure out here rarely meant something good.
I slowed my horse anyway. She did not wave or call out. She simply watched me with eyes that had already seen too much.
She was Apache. That much was clear from the beads in her hair and the morning ash faintly marking her skin. A widow, I realized, and my chest tightened. Apache widows were not supposed to wander alone. If her tribe had cast her out, it was a death sentence disguised as tradition.
Raiders, soldiers, hunger, any of them would finish what grief had started. "Don't come closer if you won't help," she said calmly, her voice steady but tired.
"If you leave me here, I will not curse you. I will only die. I should have turned away. Every man in the territory knew, the old law whispered about in trading posts and camps. Give protection to
An Apache widow, and you take her fate onto your own shoulders. Shelter, food, a ride, any of it was enough to bind a man by tribal law. I told myself those rules didn't apply to me. I was a cowboy.
Not a tribesman. The sun was already sinking, bleeding red across the horizon. I imagined wolves in the dark, or worse, men. I reached down and offered my hand. She mounted without hesitation, light.
As if she'd already let go of fear. As we rode, she told me her name was Nalina. Her husband had died in a skirmish near the river, and until her mourning year ended, she was discover more video.
Note, taking app content creation tools, video editing software, AI writing tools, language, learning app forbidden from returning to the tribe. Walking meant death. Waiting meant the same. Riding with me was her only chance. You should know, she said quietly, almost kindly, that by our law, a man who carries a widow through the night becomes her protector, and a protector becomes her husband. I
laughed once, uneasy, and said, "Laws like that didn't scare me." She didn't argue. She just looked ahead, as if she already knew how the story ended.
The stars came out sharp and cold above us, and with every hoofbeat I felt the weight of a choice I didn't yet understand.
By the time we made camp, I'd given her water, shared my food, and kept watch while she slept. I had saved her life, and without knowing it, I had just given away my own. Morning came hard and sudden, the kind of dawn that leaves no room for doubt. I woke to the sound of stones shifting and leather brushing against leather. When I opened my eyes, rifles and bows were already trained on me. Apache warriors stood in a wide circle around our small camp, silent and unmoving, their faces unreadable. My hand drifted toward my gun, but the message was clear. I would never draw it in time. Nalina rose slowly beside me and stepped forward.
She spoke in her language, her voice calm, respectful, carrying no fear. The warriors listened. No one interrupted her. When she finished, an older man with silver threaded through his hair stepped out from the circle.
His presence alone commanded obedience. He looked at me the way one studies a tool, deciding whether it would be useful or broken.
"You carried her," he said in rough English. "You fed her. You guarded her while she slept." He paused, letting the words settle like dust in my lungs.
"By our law, you are bound." I protested, telling him I meant no insult, no claim. I said I was only passing through, that I hadn't known.
The elder shook his head slowly. "The law does not ask what you know. It asks what you do." The warriors lowered their weapons slightly, not in mercy, but in certainty. This was settled already. I was not being threatened. I was being informed. Nalina stood beside me again.
"You are not trapped," she said quietly. "You are protected now as I am." There was no triumph in her eyes, only acceptance.
This was not a trap she had set, but a path she had been forced to walk.
They took us back to the village, moving like shadows through the rocks.
Children stared, women watched from behind hides and fires. No celebration marked our arrival. This was not a wedding in the way white men understood it.
It was duty made flesh. The elder explained the terms plainly. I could not abandon her. I could not harm her.
I could not take another woman. If I tried to flee, the tribe would hunt me, not in anger, but in enforcement of law older than any border or treaty.
If I stayed, I would be fed, sheltered, and watched. That night, sitting by the fire, I finally understood the truth.
I had crossed into a world where intention meant nothing and responsibility meant everything. My freedom, the thing I had always believed no one could take, was gone.
Not by force of arms, but by a ride I had chosen to give. Across the fire, Nalina met my eyes. "You saved my life," she said softly.
Now our lives walked together, and for the first time I realized this wasn't punishment. It was a bond. Life among the Apache did not soften with time, it sharpened. Each day tested whether I
Belonged or would break. I was given no special place, no easy path. I hauled water, gathered wood, learned when to speak, and when silence mattered more than words. The warriors watched me closely.
not with hatred, but with the cold patience of men, waiting for truth to reveal itself. Nalina became my bridge into their world. She showed me how to read tracks in stone where I once saw nothing.
How to move with the wind instead of against it. She corrected me without scolding and praised me without pride. At night, when the campfires dimmed, we spoke quietly about loss. Her husband had been brave, respected, and gentle. Mine had been a brother and a father, buried far from this land. Grief, I learned, sounded the same in every language. The turning point came when riders attacked justice.
Before dawn, they were not soldiers, but outlaws, men who believed the desert belonged to whoever was cruel enough to claim it. Shots rang out, chaos broke the calm, and for a heartbeat I hesitated.
Torn between instinct and fear, then I saw Nalina pull a child behind her, and I moved without thinking. I fought beside the Apache, not as a visitor, but as a man defending his people. I took a wound to the shoulder and kept standing. When it was over, the outlaws lay scattered or gone, and the camp still stood. No one cheered. Survival was not something to celebrate. It was something to respect. After that, the way they looked at me changed. The elders spoke my name for the first time. Food was shared without counting. I was no longer watched constantly because trust had replaced
Suspicion. One evening as the sun sank low, the elder sat beside me. "A man bound by law may earn release," he said. "You have done so. At sunrise you may go." The words should have felt like rescue. Instead, they struck me hollow. I looked at Nalina across the fire. She did not plead or protest. She only nodded once, accepting the law as she always had. That night's sleep would not come. I
realized how much I had changed. The man who had feared being tied down was gone. In his place stood someone who understood that belonging was not a chain. It was a choice forged through hardship.
loyalty and shared blood. By morning I knew the truth. Freedom was waiting, but so was something far harder to leave behind. The dawn that followed felt heavier than any I could remember. The tribe prepared quietly for the day, as if nothing important was about to happen, but I felt every movement like a drum beat in my chest. The elders' words echoed in my mind. I was free to go. No weapons would follow me, no riders would chase me. By their law I had earned my release. Nalina packed my few belongings without being asked. She placed them neatly beside my saddle and stepped back. There was no sadness on her face, only calm strength. "You are not bound anymore," she said. "What happens next must come from your heart, not our law." That was the moment I understood the depth of her
honor. She would not hold me with tradition or fear. She would rather stand alone again than keep a man who stayed out of obligation. In the world I came from, Freedom meant walking away without. Looking back, here it meant choosing whether to remain. I walked to the edge of the camp and looked out across the desert. That land had once promised me everything: money, adventure, distance from
the past. Now it looked empty. The fire light behind me, the quiet voices, the people who had bled beside me felt real in a way the open trail no longer did. When I turned back, the elder was
watching. He said nothing. He did not need to. This decision would not be judged by the tribe, only lived with. I returned to Nalina and placed my pack on the ground. I'm not staying because the law
says I must. I told her, I'm staying because I choose you. For the first time since I had met her, emotion flickered across her face. Not tears, but something stronger. Respect, relief, perhaps even
love, though neither of us named it. The elder nodded once, satisfied. No ceremony followed, no chants or celebration. The Apache did not mark decisions that were already true. From that day on, I was no longer a man passing through. I hunted, worked, and planned a future rooted in the land and the people who had taken me in. Nalina walked beside me, not behind, not ahead, equal. I had given a ride to a widow, thinking it was a simple act of mercy. Instead, I found a life I never knew I was searching for, not because I was forced to stay, but because staying became the bravest choice I ever made.